Grace and peace. I'm Reverend Brian Musser, the Baptist Campus Minister at Drexel University, and this is Peace and Power Christian Fellowship, the peace of Jesus Christ to change our lives, and the power of the Holy Spirit to change our world. And we are continuing our series on Revelation. This is the 8th lesson in this series, and we're looking at chapter 7, and we're going to be looking at those who are sealed in chapter 7. It's kind of fun. We've been opening 6 seals to this point, 6 of 7. And then at the end of this lesson, we'll look at the 7th seal. But there's kind of like a play on words going from the seals of a scroll to people being sealed in this chapter. And that's the focus of that chapter. So we're looking at the sealed is kind of this first section. This is the first video of 3 in lesson 8. And we will be looking at verses 1 through 8, chapter 7, verses 1 through 8. But before we get to that, let's do a little bit of a review, because these chapters specifically work together, and there's some things we'll miss if we don't kind of know what's going on and what has happened so far. So in chapter 5, the big question is, who is worthy? And a mighty angel asked that. And if you want to go back to the lesson 2 weeks ago, we see that the lion is worthy, as one of the elders reply. But then we are surprised to see a tiny slain lamb in place of the lion. And it is the lion. The lion lamb is Jesus. And he is the one worthy to open the scroll, open the seals, and fulfill God's plan, which is on the scroll. And there's some intentional irony there. John sets us to expect this great and glorious lion of the tribe of Judah, but then immediately shifts our attention to a tiny slain lamb. Just the irony is shocking, and there's a big contrast there. And hold that in your mind as we continue to work through what's going on in chapter 7. So chapter 6, the lamb starts opening the seals, and judgment is released through the 4 horsemen who are going to the 4 ends of the earth. As this is being fulfilled, we shift our attention back to heaven, and the witnesses ask, the martyrs ask, how long unto those who killed us are judged? So there's these martyrs gathered around the throne in white demanding justice, and they are told to rest until their number is complete. So first 4 seals are the 4 horsemen. The 5th seal is these martyrs. And then the 6th seal is broken, and the world is ending. It is cataclysmic. It is using the language that the Old Testament uses to just describe the undoing of the natural world. And humanity, all of humanity, rich and poor, kings and slaves, ask, who can survive? So we see this contrast here as well. Kind of like the contrast between the lion and the lamb, we see a second contrast between the witnesses asking for justice and humanity begging for mercy. Just there's that stark difference going on there. The expression "how long," which is what the witnesses kind of portray, is a very, very often used way to describe this idea, this demand for justice. We see it often in Psalms and Daniel. And this idea, who can stand, also is significant throughout the Old Testament. It highlights that no one is able to survive God's just wrath. And the ending verse is 2 verses of Revelation chapter 6 are based on Joel and Nahum, but also have some references to Isaiah, Zephaniah, and Malachi there. How often have you heard Nahum and Zephaniah cited as while dealing with the New Testament? It's kind of fascinating how much Old Testament John issues here. So that's the setting, and you can see these questions. Who is worthy, the lion, the lamb? How long will you let this injustice continue? How long till we get justice? And then, Lord, you're starting to just bring your wrath upon the earth. Who can stand it? Oh, Lord, bring us the ability to stand through. And those are kind of the questions in order that bring us to chapter 7, verses 1 through 8. After this, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth, that no wind might blow on earth or sea or against any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun, with the seal of the living God, and he called with a loud voice the 4 angels who had been given power to harm earth and sea, saying, Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of God, of our God, on their foreheads. And I heard the number of the sealed, 144,000, sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. So just, and we kind of briefly mentioned this last week, but this idea of the 4 horsemen, which shows up in the first 4 seals of chapter 6, is related to Zechariah 6, 1 through 8. Again, I lifted my eyes and saw, and behold, 4 chariots came out from between the 2 mountains. The first chariot had red horses, the second black horses, the third white horses, and the fourth chariot dappled horses, all of them strong. So their horses, some are in chariots. Revelation 6 has them on just horseback, but the colors are the same. There is a reference here that is solid, that John was thinking of the Zechariah passage when he's writing Revelation 6. But if we look a little bit further, then I answered and said to the angel who talked to me, What are these, my Lord? The angels answered and said to me, These are going out to the 4 winds of heaven, after presenting themselves before the Lord of all the earth. And if you want to do a deeper dive, you can also look at Zechariah chapter 1, verses 7 through 17 there as well. So we can see the 4 horsemen in Revelation are related to the 4 chariots in Zechariah. And the Zechariah chariots are also related to the 4 winds. So the horsemen are set out to judge the earth in chapter 6. But in chapter 7, after the people have asked who can stand, they're held back. So based on Zechariah 6, the 4 horsemen released in chapter 6 are also the 4 winds held back in chapter 7. In response to the witnesses' cry for justice, judgment is released upon the earth. In response to humanity's plea for mercy, that judgment is held back until some of humanity can be marked with a seal of God to preserve them through the judgment. How many are sealed? Well, in this, it's a very specific number of very specific individuals. So 144,000 people, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. So judgment is released as justice for the witnesses and martyrs, but then it is held back as mercy for the rest of humanity until some of humanity can be sealed and to be preserved through the judgment. And we see in the verses here that these are, it's very specific. There's some very interesting things going on with this list. We see Judah first, which is unusual. We see Manasseh and Joseph listed instead of Manasseh and Ephraim. And we see Levi listed, which isn't usually happen. And because it's for some reason, because Manasseh, Levi, and Joseph are listed, Dan is not. One of the tribes are missing in this, and that has led to a bunch of speculation. But we see in response to this, who can stand? God is sending holding back judgment for a moment. There is a pause, and the angels are going out to seal this 144,000 to preserve them through the judgment to come. So I wanted us to really think through and get into this. Why does God wait? Why does God wait to punish sin? Why does God wait to bring judgment upon the earth? Why doesn't, as soon as you do something wrong, why doesn't it work that as soon as you do something wrong, you get immediate punishment? Is it just for God to wait? The fact that even on this earth, some sins do not go punished. Some righteous people get abused and some unrighteous people find success. Is that just? Is there mercy there? And as you think about these things, what would be lost if God immediately punished sin? Why doesn't God immediately punish sin? Why doesn't God immediately defend the weak and the helpless, the widows, the poor? Why doesn't this world, why is sin allowed to exist for a time in this world? This is a big, heavy question. I would love to hear some of your comments down in the bottom about this. I'll respond appropriately. I do believe that as we read through this and as we see the the juxtaposition of the actors in chapter 7, we'll see a little something interesting going on here. But it's all in the balance of justice and mercy is kind of the reason why at times God waits to punish sin. So if you enjoyed this conversation, you can always join it in person Sunday nights at 5 p.m. in the JEMIC and on these weekly wrap-ups on YouTube and or WordPress. I would love to engage with you on either of those locations. I'm all over the social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, WordPress, YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow at those places as well. Enjoyed having this conversation. Hopefully it continues real soon.